Welcome to Retire Right Washington. The team at the Retirement Solution has been helping families plan for a successful retirement. The Retirement Solution helps you learn about strategies for creating income in retirement, managing your wealth, and minimizing taxes. Welcome to Retire Right Washington.
Did you know when it comes to retirement, what you don't know could end up hurting you? So how do you get out in front of these threats if you've never retired before? We're going to talk about that today with Tom Black and Matt Perrone. They're both financial planners with the Retirement Solution, helping us here in Washington State plan for ideal retirements. I want to talk to you about this, Tom and Matt, because it's true, right? You usually get one crack at retirement, so we don't have a lot of experience under our belt. And there are some real threats out there that we might not know about. What should we be thinking about? How do we get out in front of some of these threats, Matt, before we enter retirement?
Yeah, the way you said it, Megan, is so key. Most people haven't retired before actual retirement comes. When I say most, I of course mean all. You haven't done this before, right? And so this is something, though, that when you sit down with someone like Tom or myself or someone else on the team, we've done this before. We've seen the things that people have done wrong and that you don't want to get wrong. You don't want to get your one shot at retirement and mess it up. So there's all kinds of things that we could spend the whole 30-minute show on, which of course we don't have time for. But things like income sources, tax planning, there's different rules that apply in retirement than they did in pre-retirement, that people will accidentally carry them forward and then see, oh, that doesn't work anymore. And so there's just so much to take into account as you're planning. Right,
there really is. And when we think about retirement, we don't want to take a chance with everything that we've saved. You want to make sure that you're being a good steward of the money that you've put away. So, Tom, I'll ask you this. As Matt was saying, we have these threats that are out there, and I think about healthcare, taxes, inflation, the list goes on. It sounds like it's really important to be working with a financial planner who understands some of these risks.
I think so. I mean, the world in the financial world, there's a lot of people out there that work in this industry. There's a lot of those who are accumulation experts. But once you get to that phase of your life where you're ready to step away from that last paycheck you were ever going to have for the rest of your life, you really need to start working with a specialist who is really involved with this phase of retirement, which is retirement or the distribution phase. And as Matt pointed out, you don't really want a second, you don't want to try this twice. You want to retire right the first time and make sure that you are okay throughout the entirety of your retirement. And so working with someone who's retired a few people in the past, I couldn't even tell you hundreds of people that we have retired over the years. We know what we're looking for, and we've seen those pitfalls. And we can help prevent someone from having to go down that road and learn that lesson. And that is really important to be able to have that confidence in your own retirement, because the people you're working with have done this before.
Yeah, I love that word, confidence. And Matt, I'll talk to you because Tom mentioned pitfalls. So we mentioned some of them. Taxes and healthcare seem to stand out. But what should we absolutely know? What other things could be lurking in the shadows for us?
Yeah, I'll hit on a phrase that Tom used, which is once you get that last paycheck you're ever going to get, people will know, for example, when they retire, well, I know I have X number of dollars, $1 million, $5 million, whatever it is. But what they don't know is, what does that mean to me? Does that mean that I can live the lifestyle I want to live now, or for 5 years only, or for 20 years? Or what does that mean? Another thing that people need to know is what their actual goal is. Sometimes people just have this short-term vision of, well, I just want to be done working because I'm tired of it. I'm sick of my boss. I'm sick of my job, whatever. And then you accomplish that, you're retired, but then what? What else is going to happen after that? And then what's needed in order to build a plan so that you can accomplish those things?
Wow, that's really good. I'm hearing you talk about what I think you're saying is purpose. Is that a consideration? It's almost, I know we're talking financial, but it's almost psychological.
I think it is psychological. And I think of a client that I worked with recently who came in and wanted to retire but didn't know when he could. And as we helped him create a plan and we looked at all of these pieces that Matt's talking about, we were able to determine that he actually had enough money that he could retire. He didn't have to go back to work anymore. And if you can picture, he's about 64 years old, and just figured he had to work for another 3 or 4 more years at least. But was very unhappy with his job. And as we looked at the income plan, his income plan, and he could see how much money he could spend, I think maybe for the first time in public in maybe the last 40 years, he started to cry. That he could be done. That he knew that these things had been taken into consideration, these pitfalls, and he could see out into his future. And it's very difficult for me to express to you what that was like to sit in the room with him and know that I had a part in that. And he could walk in the next day and say, I'm out. He didn't end up doing that. It really took the pressure off, and he worked for a couple more months before he left work. But for him to know that and to be able to do that, that's what we do this for. That's why I got into this, was to help people to be able to see that and be successful when there are so many challenges you don't even know to ask about.
Talk about a good day in the office. Wow. When you're blessed enough to be able to share that news with someone who's there with you and say, if you don't want to, you don't have to go back to work. And that, of course, the power of doing the comprehensive planning that I know that you focus on at the Retirement Solution, it gives that clarity so that you can decide if you want to go back to the 9 to 5 the next day or not. All right, we're going to continue talking about some of these unknowns, some of these threats, and we're going to do that on the other side of the break with Tom and Matt. Up next, we will dive deeper into this topic. Later in our Retirement Minute, Tom looks at some of the top retirement questions of all time. You want to stay tuned for that. Maybe your question is on the list, and we'll be back right after this.
On the surface, your retirement plan might look solid. With your 401k or IRA, Social Security, investments, and insurance coverage, you appear to have it all covered. But what could you be missing? Below the surface, is your retirement exposed to too much risk? It's time for a deeper dive into your portfolio. We can help you uncover the risk that lies beneath the surface and learn about strategies to help preserve your savings. Get your free risk analysis today.
When it comes to planning for the future, time may not always be on your side. Think about your taxes. Tax rates are historically low right now, but they'll likely be higher in the future. With the right planning and strategy, you might be able to cut your tax bill in the years to come. But don't wait until it's too late to take advantage of today's lower tax rates. Let us be your partner in planning for tomorrow, so you can enjoy your retirement today.
Well, here in the state of Washington and really across the country, for that matter, we have a lot of stuff to sift through as it comes to retirement. A lot of noise, I guess we could call it, in the retirement sphere. How do we begin to cut through all of that?
I think the first thing you got to do is, and we've talked about this before, was really the organization. I think if there's any one key thing that we do for people is we help them get to be organized and then create from that organization a plan, a detailed plan for how their retirement's going to go financially. So that's always a great place to start, but that's only like the very tip, the obvious piece. There are so many other parts of really looking at your retirement and making sure that we got it all handled here. Are we going to be able to do the things that you've always dreamed of being able to do? And let's make sure we nail those things. You know, if your dream, and you come in and tell me, hey, my dream is we have always wanted to spend a month in, Italy, and we're going to go to all these places. How do we make that happen? Well, let's figure that out. That's a fun challenge. Let's figure out how we can get that done so you can check that off of your list. Maybe you want to move next to the grandkids. Grandma wants to be there. Let's find a way to make that happen. Yeah. Those are all pieces of it, Matt, don't you think?
I love it. And to go back to an earlier part of it too, we talked about sifting through all that noise. There's those goals that people have. I think one way to sift through the noise is to see if no matter what you tell somebody who's trying to give you advice, if they always have the same solution or the same product or the same thing, that's probably not someone you should be listening to.
Tell me more about that.
Well, there's lots of folks that are out there. We'll use the difference, we'll frame it this way. There's people who push products and there's people who build plans. Okay. Someone who's just pushing a product they may listen to you and hear what you have to say, whether it's Italy or the grandkids or whatever, But then no matter what, they'll say,
Yeah.
you know what you need? This life insurance product or this annuity or whatever.
Yeah.
And maybe that's true, maybe it's not. Building a plan is all about listening to what they say and then helping someone craft a plan that actually accomplishes that. And it doesn't care what the product is or the investment or whatever, it's just about, does it work for your plan?
Okay, so everything can't be a hammer.
That's a great way to summarize it.
Well, if all you sell are nails,
There you go.
everything's a hammer.
Right.
I think of the clients that we come in and we see, and how much we get to be a part of their lives. I've worked with some people for quite a few years now, and they have passed through. Maybe we talked earlier about the different phases, and we're starting to get into that slow go phase. And how much fun it is to sit down with them on a yearly basis and say, what did you do this year? What are we doing next year? How do we adjust the plan from what we originally did 7-8 years ago to where we are today? And not only just to take into consideration those changes, but just talk about what's gone on. And the dreams that they have gone out and done. I've always wanted to do, and then to hear about it. And I'm trying to think through one specific example, and all of a sudden I'm flooded with different clients, and I've got them all, they're all getting jumbled in my head of those conversations that we have with them, and how that relationship gets built over the years. And we just become part of their lives.
Well, I like that you call it a relationship. And it really is what we're talking about. When you're thinking of all people have worked, sacrificed for, to save, to get to the point where they can retire because they've been such responsible savers, you do need someone who's going to walk with you. That is a relationship. You mentioned noise. I want to go back to this, Matt, because the world is different. When you think about 24-hour news cycles, 24-hour, 7-day-a-week news cycles, you think about the access to information, whether you're Googling it. I don't know about you, but you ever have a pain in your back and you Google it so much before you know it, it's end of days, right?
Right.
When people are walking into your office, how much disinformation are you having to try to whittle away at right now?
It's a wonderful, in my experience, a lot. Different amounts and different things from different people, but sometimes people come in and they say, I read that I have to have $3 million in order to just barely make it. Well, again, maybe that depends on your lifestyle. There's also rules of thumb out there that say how much you can pull out of your investments and stuff. There's other things that say, oh, the stock market's treated you great for the first 40 years. Why won't it treat you great for your last 40 years? There's a lot. There's just so much more to it than the way those make it sound.
Well, I've heard you both say that you take an individual approach, right? So if you go back to Matt's rules of thumb, that sound like they're not quite rules anymore, Tom. This really it begins to kind of pull back the curtain on the approach that's necessary, looking at the person themselves.
Absolutely. We get these rules of thumb because they're easy to sell. It can put it on an envelope or what they call a stamp or whatever, and people can understand that. But the problem is we're not all a cookie cutter. We are not all the same, and so that rule of thumb doesn't necessarily apply equally to everyone. And goals are different, and desires, and where we want to be. And so being able to create that plan for that individual and be able to say, this is your plan, and this is going to work for you because it was created for you, despite what the noise in the world is. And then to be able to say, now once you have your plan, sure, we're going to make some adjustments, but we don't need to make anything tomorrow just because something came up in the news last week.
Okay, and just because someone's brother-in-law has some product,
has a hot tip or
doesn't mean that it's necessarily for you. Okay, so it's all about turning down the noise, turning up the confidence, and we tend to lean on the two of you for that. And we'll continue our conversation, Tom and Matt. And up next, Tom shares his take on some of the top retirement questions of our time. Your question might be on that list, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Planning for retirement can be complicated. Helping create income that lasts, making sure your healthcare is covered, investing while managing risk, and don't forget about taxes. If you're overwhelmed, you're not alone. The good news is we have what you need to give you confidence to start planning for your ideal retirement, all in one convenient resource. You'll get answers to some of your biggest retirement questions in this easy-to-understand, practical resource. And best of all, there's no cost to you. Take the first step toward a confident retirement and get yours today.
If you're in or nearing retirement, you probably have a few questions about retirement. But what are the biggest questions about retirement? Tom shares that with us in our Retirement Minute. Tom?
Thanks, Megan. So we're going to spend a few minutes now talking about some of the top retirement questions that we've heard. And these are probably ones you're probably thinking you want answers to as well. So let me just run through them real quick, and then we'll come back around and we'll talk about each one. So the first one is, how much should I have saved at my age? And we'll come back. That's always an interesting one. If my retirement 401k is going down, should I stop contributing and start saving money elsewhere? So, a question about our 401ks. How can I time the market? That's going to be an interesting one to talk about for a few minutes. How can I and my spouse make sure that we'll be okay? And finally, when should I start taking my Social Security? So let's just start with, how much money should I have at this point in my age? The answer is really, it depends. Retirement is all about making sure that you have more money every month than you have expenses. A successful retirement is $1 more than you need every month. And an unsuccessful retirement is $1 less. It really is no more complicated than that when it really comes down to your income. And so when you think about how much should I have saved, what we want to do is we want to look at what you've got and determine how much money you can spend throughout the course of your lifetime every month of every year as we're working forward. And then we want to know about 401ks. My 401k is going down, or maybe the match isn't going to be there anymore. So I stop contributing. Is there a better place to save? In general, your 401k is a great place to save because the money comes out before you see it. You don't have to make a decision about it. You're being able to save money into some investments. Typically, you have some exchange-traded funds in there, what are called ETFs, that are going to have some low cost, plus there's low overhead in most 401ks. So it's still a great place to save your money until you're ready to retire. I think within a couple of years of retirement, you probably want to look at what could we do differently here. Is there a better vehicle for some of those assets? But for general, I think you're still good saving there. How can I time the markets? You can't. That's it. End of this question. No, you really can't. If you want to talk about this all the time, there's probably 100 books that you can buy about how to time the market. The reality, if anybody could do that, we'd be millionaires, but we can't. There's just too many things going on. So don't try and time the market. Plan. If you're planning efficiently, you don't have to worry about timing the market. How do I know if my spouse and I are going to be okay? Now, in answer to that question, have you planned? If you have, with your financial person, sat down and created a plan that shows you how much money you can spend the month after you retire, the 10 years after you retire, and you look at that flow of money and you say, I'm okay with this, I'm comfortable with this, then you got a pretty good idea you're going to be okay. But without that, if you're just going into it and you're thinking, you've spent the last 40 years getting a paycheck, and now you're going to retire and not know where your next essential paycheck is coming from, yeah, that would cause me to stress a lot. I'd lose a lot of hair over that. And finally, when should I take my Social Security? Boy, that's a tough one. I will tell you, if you look today on Google and you Google this, you're going to get all kinds of answers. You're going to have people that say, take it at 62 as soon as you can. If you wait too long, you're an idiot. And other people are going to say, hey, you got to wait till you're 70. If you take it sooner than that, you're an idiot. The answer is, it depends on your situation. There's a lot of situations where we really want to see how that plays in relationship to your other assets. We've created an entire plan and we're saying, hey, good news, we're going to start maybe one of them at 62 and the other at 70 or some variation thereof because it makes the most sense over the course of your retirement. So great questions. I wish I could give you definite answers to all of them, but the reality is it's more important to be asking these kinds of questions and thinking about these before you retire and as you're building that plan than it is down the road after you've already gotten retired. Back to you, Megan.
Thanks, Tom. Up next, your biggest retirement questions answered by Tom and Matt. That's coming up in our Q&A segment.
How does your future look in retirement? When you don't have a strategy, the future might look a little fuzzy. But with someone asking the right questions and helping you learn where you truly stand, it can become easier to work towards your goals. You need a plan to help generate income that will last as long as you need it. And the first step to creating an income plan is an analysis of where you are now. Let us help you bring your retirement into focus with your free income analysis today.
Planning for retirement can be complicated. Helping create income that lasts, making sure your health care is covered, investing while managing risk, and don't forget about taxes. If you're overwhelmed, you're not alone. The good news is we have what you need to give you confidence to start planning for your ideal retirement, all in one convenient resource. You'll get answers to some of your biggest retirement questions in this easy-to-understand, practical resource. And best of all, there's no cost to you. Take the first step toward a confident retirement and get yours today.
Well, maybe you have a retirement question. There's a chance we might ask Tom and Matt your question today. And there are a lot of questions out there that I know people have swirling in their minds, right? And the two of you are always such good sports about taking whatever question we throw at you. Are you ready to do this?
Absolutely.
It's a lot of fun.
Should we dive in? Because we have a number of questions to get to. So we'll see how many we can answer. Tom, we're going to put you first, okay? All right. First question comes from Elaine in Richland. She says, I'm less than a year away from retiring. I have retirement accounts and I've been working with a broker for years. I guess I've never considered how taxes will affect me. Once I start taking my withdrawals, how will I be taxed?
Well, I appreciate the question, Elaine. I think the question that I would actually come back with you on is, great, you're ready to retire, and also amazing, you're thinking about taxes and you're thinking about what will this look like in the future, because you have time if you get your taxes right now. And so we can start organizing and thinking about how will we pay the least amount of taxes we are legally obligated to pay over the course of our lifetime. And that answer may not be pay less now. It may be that we're better off doing some strategies that involve paying a little bit more taxes now, so that over the course of your lifetime, your total tax bill is less.
Because tax rates are actually, it might not feel like it, but they are actually historically pretty low. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, they are. It doesn't. I mean, anybody who looks at your taxes at the end of the year when you're doing your tax returns or whatever never says, man, I wish I could have paid more. But they are historically low. And I think if we all kind of look at the head, and if I took a poll, I think most people would say, what do you think tax is going to be in 10 years? Lower, higher? Probably going to be higher. And so tax planning is very integral to retirement, maybe more so than it was during the course of your working years, because you always had another paycheck. And now you've gotten that last paycheck, you've got this stash of money. We want to make sure that you pay that least amount of taxes, and potentially even pay the least amount for your kids if they have an inheritance they're going to be getting.
Okay, so if you're planning on giving that money to your kids, you want to be thinking taxes as far as it relates to them as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, really good insights. Taxes is, it can be a big risk if you don't consider it. So.
They say the two things you're going to do is pay taxes and die.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. All right. Well, Elaine didn't forget about it. It's a great question from Elaine. We thank her. All right, Matt, this one's for you. Jim in Yakima, he says, my wife and I are lucky enough to have retired comfortably, but are concerned with our 2 adult children. They just aren't ready to fully launch out on their own. It's going to start eating into our savings to continue to support them. So how do we help our children without harming our retirement?
Yeah, this is an unfortunate reality that a lot of our clients are dealing with. We see this over and over again. The reality is a lot of youngsters today are graduating with more college debt than before, earning less, and there's inflation concerns, and homes are more expensive now. So it's unfortunately not that uncommon. The way we've helped to address this in the past, there's a couple of things. We'll recommend that clients look at this kind of like when you're on the airplane and they give you the emergency speech and they say, if the masks come down, put on your own first. So it sounds like Jim is already relatively aware of that, like, hey, I'm trying to watch out for myself here, and this doesn't hurt us. So it's good that mindset is there. Another way that we've helped address this in the past is we'll bring in the kids to meetings. It is not uncommon at all for us to meet with our clients and their children and discuss all their finances. And there's different types of circumstances where the parents are doing great and the kids say, great, go spend it. There's other ones where we've been able to say, hey, listen, this needs to be for them. And it helps give the kids a bit of a wake-up call. Or we have conversations where we discuss, hey, listen, we can help for X number of months or years, but then that's it. And it just really gets that conversation going.
Well, and that's great that you bring the adult children in to have those conversations. And I think Jim's instincts, like you said, are correct. They don't give out loans for retirement, right? Last I checked. So I love the analogy of the mask in the airplane. Make sure that you're okay before you give away your retirement savings. All right, terrific insights there. All right, Tom, let's go to you. Our next question comes in from Lynn in Seattle. She says, I'm 63 years old, and all my life I've been investing consistently, including in my 403B at work. My advisor says I'm doing great and not to worry about retirement, but I feel like it's time for a more solid plan. What should I do?
Well, first off, you're right, Lynn. Absolutely agree with you. You've probably done great, which sounds awesome. But when it's time to retire, and we've talked about this before, you're going to be making that transition from an accumulator to a distributor of those assets you've been accumulating your entire life. And so that is definitely the time that you want to start getting organized. And ideally, I would tell you, we want to start meeting with you 2 to 5 years before you think you're ready to retire, so that you have a chance to get organized before you get into your retirement years. You don't want to just, walk out the door and, like you say, have the party, get the watch, and you look around and go, now what? Can I buy anything? What am I doing now? And so we really want to go through it. So I love that you're asking this question early, that you're thinking about it, and yes, absolutely, you want to start getting organized and really start looking at what does your future look like.
Yeah, never too early to start planning. All right? Okay. Just speaking to two planners.
Yes.
Well.
All right, Matt, next one is for you. This one from Caroline in Walla Walla. She says, I'm 55 and own a small but successful local business. I'd like to sell the business and retire soon. I'm still young and I'll have to pay for healthcare once I step away from the business. What's the best way to plan for this?
Ooh, okay, so Caroline, I love that she's asking this. That's wonderful. And congratulations on the business, by the way. I love that this question's being brought up because a lot of people will think, in my opinion, erroneously, well, I can't retire until I'm 65 because I have to be on Medicare. No, not at all. Health insurance before Medicare, yes, it's expensive, but at the risk of sounding like a broken record, we always talk about building a plan. In the context of a 30, 40-year plan, building in extra money for more expensive insurance before 65, a lot of times is not that big of a deal. So I encourage people to not worry about that. It can just be another part of the plan.
Okay. Some great questions from our viewers today. We always appreciate your answers and insights. So Tom, Matt, we thank you so much. And we'll do this again next week. And what about you? Maybe you want to know ways to generate lifetime income, reduce your tax bill, maintain that lifestyle that you have in your retirement. You can reach out now. Start planning for your ideal retirement. For Tom Black, Matt Perrone, the great team at Retirement Solution, I'm Megan Mozak. Have a great day and an even better retirement.